Hey, y'all, I'm Kim Stewart, host of Book Marketing Mania, where we talk about all the things to help you meet new readers and market your books online. Today, I'm so thrilled to welcome my friend Heather Heuman, author of The Golden Rules of Social Media Marketing and host of the Business Jesus and Sweet Tea podcast to the show. I've been a fan of Heather's book and podcast for years, and she runs some really cool challenges too throughout the year to help you use social media effectively. And she just celebrated her 5th anniversary of podcasting, so you'll definitely want to check out her own show for all the social media tips. And oh my gosh, the girl rocks video on all the platforms. It's such a joy to have her here today to talk about how we can use LinkedIn to grow our author platforms. You are in for a treat, so let's get to it. Hey, Heather, welcome to the Book Marketing Mania podcast. I'm so glad you're here today to serve my listeners.
Oh, thank you so much, Kim. It's awesome. I'm really, really excited to be here with you.
Me too. So y'all heard me gush about Heather in my introduction, and I just wanted to pick her brain today. She's amazing on all the different social media channels, but the one that I always ask about, and I know often my audience of authors ask about, whether it's worth their time, is LinkedIn. So we are going to be diving into that today. So Heather, first off, why would you say LinkedIn is a good channel for authors to be utilizing?
Yeah. So, that's a really great question. And I think what I want to say first is that where your audience is spending time on an ongoing, consistent basis is strategy wise, what makes sense for you. So please hear me when I say, if your audience is on LinkedIn, let's talk about how to use LinkedIn more effectively and smarter. But for authors and for people that are okay, I've got this book and I'm on this platform and I'm wanting to do what Heather is saying and I'm wanting to be smarter. One of the key things that I want everyone to hear me say is that when you've got that platform of LinkedIn and you as an author are saying, I want this to be seen by more people, is I want you to on LinkedIn really be featuring your book prominently within your LinkedIn profile and not you just thinking that because maybe you have in your tagline on LinkedIn that you're an author, that's enough. And for you to really not keep that you have a book or that there is a book in the works or that it's available for sale right now as this hidden secret, but utilize and really optimize your LinkedIn profile so that more people would be able to more consistently know that you're an author, what the book's about, and how they could ultimately go about buying it or wanting to, book you for an event to talk to you about the book or whatever that really looks like. So really being able to feature the book on LinkedIn, I think that too many people underutilize the actual LinkedIn platform to be able to really get the most out of your efforts that are available.
Yeah. So in your profile, would you say, typically, and especially on LinkedIn, I think we want to really share our accolades about us. And, so we could say we're an author, we could talk about our book and what it's about, but would you say in your profile, do you really want to hone in on, the value for the readers in that portion, or is that going to come through just in the content you post?
That's a really great question. So if it were me, and I do have a book, so I'm this is what I would say is make sure that you, of course, have in the, bear with me here. Everybody's got the different names for all the things, but right when you are editing on your LinkedIn profile, you literally have a very, very small number of words that you can utilize to kind of give the description that people kind of get that, 5-second once over on your LinkedIn profile. But I would make sure that in that spot that you do have down that you are an author. But second to that, I would make sure that in the summary section on LinkedIn that you ultimately showcase who this book is for. So they don't have to go digging. It's really clear that your most recent book or the book that you're wanting to feature is this book about this topic that can help these people get this particular outcome. And in addition to the summary section, I would say from a video perspective, and I've got some data I'd love to share with you, Kim, to kind of go like, why should we be leveraging video? But on LinkedIn, there's almost like this media section for you to really be able to say, do you have like a 1-minute video with you just really as an author discussing or talking about what your book is about? Did you know that you could select that video that you've made and have it as be like a featured piece of content on your LinkedIn profile, so that as you are smartly building connections and new people are coming to your profile, it's really something that gets elevated as content that you want people to see. And then with what you said is important, you want to sprinkle throughout your ongoing LinkedIn strategy that content about the book. So whether it's someone bought the book and they're happy about the book and this is what someone's saying about it, or it's you spotlighting maybe particular content from the book and not letting it be like, oh, I wrote this book in fall of 2019. And after those 6 weeks of quote promoting my book, I'm never talking about it again. Don't make that mistake, but continue to just sprinkle that as almost ongoing evergreen content in what you are posting about.
Yeah, that's so great. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we promote that big time on the podcast. It's just, there's so many ways to market your book before it even comes out. But then, yeah, just way after it comes out, don't forget, because there's so many new readers that need to discover it, right? I mean, I think about your own book and, I think your social media book was out for a while before I even knew about it. And I'd followed you and I just didn't know. I didn't really pay attention, I guess. And that's been years ago, and it's still such a great book to turn to. So yeah, there's just so many opportunities after that initial book release to keep serving your readers and discovering new ones. So I was just thinking about you talking through all that. So the media, I had no idea about that. So that's fascinating. I'm gonna have to go check that out. But I love the idea that authors could feature that, because they could either have, it's kind of like a book trailer, right? Like a small personal book trailer. And I was going to think, because the next question I wanted to ask you about was just all the different people we can connect with on LinkedIn. And I'm thinking some of those, that'll be so important to have a piece of content like that. Because I know a lot of times, especially for my audience, they're writing about Christian living typically on their blogs and then their books. And they're probably not thinking my target reader may be on LinkedIn somehow, but maybe they're not looking for that content. But I think like my husband's always telling me I need to be on LinkedIn, because he's in the corporate world and that's huge, right?
Right.
But he's like, there's so many people you want to connect with there because they may have the connections. And I think about that with authors is, yeah, if you could connect with everybody that you should connect with, and that's another question we'll get to. But, if you're making connections, maybe that person's not your target reader, but they may know, like their next door neighbor may be going through the issues that your book helps them conquer. And so, yeah, I just think there's amazing things to do with it. And I'm not the best example because I'm not utilizing it like I should, but I'm so glad that's why we have Heather here to teach us. So let's talk about who all they could connect with. So they obviously can connect with their target readers specifically that, might be interested in reading the book. What about I just kind of made like an initial list, and I'd love you just to pop in your thoughts on these, Heather. But obviously your target readers, you might also connect with podcast hosts because we talk a lot about podcast pitching. And I know some podcast hosts share their content on LinkedIn. So you could connect with them there and build a relationship, as well as publishers and agents you're wanting to pitch your book idea to, which immediately made me think of that when you said about that media, because I thought, oh my gosh, if you connect with somebody and they pop back over to your profile and see that, and they might be like, I know we need a book on this topic at our publishing house, or an agent knows, that they've got some publishers to pitch it to, as well as even referrals. I've worked with a lot of mental health professionals that are writing books in the Christian living space, although they may, obviously not only do Christian counseling in their centers, and then just the media outside of podcast and, speaking events, organizations. The list to me is endless. And I know that probably seems overwhelming somewhat, but I want my audience to understand it's not just your target readers. You can eventually get to your target readers through all these different avenues. So I'd love for you just to kind of speak into your thoughts on that, or if there's anything maybe I've missed on the list that would be applicable to authors and bloggers that want to utilize LinkedIn.
No, absolutely. So here's what's coming to my mind as you're talking, Kim, is that as authors, one of the main reasons for us to really leverage LinkedIn is to really be able to build our own credibility and our own kind of influence within the industry, no matter who your book is for. Like there's a space, right? There is a space of people that might be a go-to book. It may be, totally faith-based. It may be business related. It could be fitness related, but those people are on LinkedIn in a leadership capacity. So what I would like every single reader I could easily give you like a cookie cutter answer of connect with CEOs, connect with decision makers. Well, that's obviously lovely. But what I would love to ask every person listening to this is, if you could make a sell of a book, your book, would you rather make one sell, or would you rather make, through one connection, make 100 sales? And so when I think of LinkedIn, which does have this cultural atmosphere of being a more professional atmosphere, which is true. And my thought I want everyone to walk away with is saying, there are people that are moms and granddaughters and all these other ways that we can connect to them. But because of the industry for which your book could be deemed as an excellent read, when you're making connections with those decision makers that may be responsible for coordinating events, conferences, what goes in swag bags, all those things, on LinkedIn, more so than I would say Facebook, you've got the ability, when you've really up-leveled that connection, and it's not just this person that's one of 10,000 that you don't have any ongoing, I'd say, cultivation happening. That person has the ability, with just one quick decision, to say, I would love to get 50 of your books. I would love to get 100 of your books, whether it be for a conference or an event, or, like I said, a swag bag. So when you're thinking LinkedIn, I want you to be thinking, who is maybe hosting retreats? Who is maybe responsible for what books are going to be at a particular conference venue that relates to your industry? So I would say on LinkedIn, and if you don't currently utilize the search bar effectively, I want to share with everybody a quick tip. So on LinkedIn, once you're logged in by yourself, you're in there, you go to the search bar. And so if you want to take what I'm saying into consideration, maybe you type in CEO, and then here's the trick. You, on your keyboard, you hit the plus sign, and then you add another thing that you want LinkedIn to take into consideration. So the way that this might look is you type in CEO plus fitness plus events, and you hit search. So then what it's going to do is it's only going to pull up people that have within their profile CEO, fitness, and events. And then you may be looking still at a really long list. And then so here is almost like a pro tip for everybody listening. Once you've done that, I'm actually going to do this myself because, LinkedIn changes all the time.
Yeah.
Once that list pulls up, you're going to see across the top, you're going to click on the button that says people.
Okay.
But then once you've done that, over just a little bit is a little section that says all filters. I want you to click on that, and I want you to choose second degree connections. Then you click the button that says show results. So now what you have done, whether you only have 15 minutes to do this, or you've set aside an hour to do this, is it's going to then take a list that's probably, 10,000 people, and it's going to tighten it. For example, on the one I just typed in, it brought it down to a list of 2,600 people. And then you can say, those are people as second degree connections that someone that you're connected with on LinkedIn is connected to one of those people. Okay. So that's a little bit closer than just completely at a left field. You're just reaching out to total unconnected people on LinkedIn. Start with someone that there's a little bit of a tie-in. Okay. And why is that important? Well, that means in your efforts to maybe send them a connection request, you can say, whatever, hey, John, I see that you're in the fitness space and you're also here in my town. I just wanted to reach out and say hello. I love seeing what you're doing, but I also just see that we are both connected with Sarah Johnson. She was in my wedding, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you've got the ability to personalize that personal note when you reach out to somebody that literally shows that you took some time and effort, which literally could be 45 seconds of your time. And it really increases the likelihood that they're going to respond to you. It up levels that there's a little bit of a connection that you have with that person than just maybe randomness of you going to the LinkedIn profile.
Okay. Yeah. That's such a great tip. I'm going to definitely have to get on and try that. Because I was thinking as you were talking through that, like it would be so great to be able to search out, acquisition editor at a certain publishing house or, producer at a certain TV station if you're wanting to pitch TV and, or author at a certain publishing house, because maybe you're considering a publishing house, but you want to talk to other authors. And so finding those connections, like I never even thought, that searching is so hard on things, but like if those little filters like you just shared, that's such a value bomb. I so appreciate that because that'll be really great to be able to use it that way. So tell us about, so let's talk about connections, like making connections on LinkedIn. Like if you're just brand new to it, when you log in, usually you've connected with someone. I can't remember when I first started, like how those connections start popping up. When you see like loads of people that are connected to someone, like, are you wanting to connect with those people right away? Like I know I always hear like there's this magic, you want to get to 500 connections. So it shows on your profile. And I don't know if that's true or not. Heather, you tell us if that's an important metric or not, but how do you just decide how to get going on LinkedIn? Like, should you connect with people? Should you follow people? Should you accept all the people that ask to connect with you? And how can we make the best decisions about that?
So what I would say to your question is you want it to look like you didn't just start yesterday on LinkedIn. So if you really did just start yesterday on LinkedIn, you want to have as a top goal in a shorter window of time of building your connections that make sense. So I'm not telling you to just randomly go find people, but again, start with those connections that start with people that you already like, know, and trust. Start with people that you may not have met them, but you've heard through mutual friends of all these people. And I will say personally, yes, you can just click the connect request option and not send a personalized note. But I am personally under the mindset that it is worth your 30 seconds of time to ultimately explain to someone that you're not connected to why you're ultimately wanting to get connected. And that why can be a variety of things. And I would also say you don't want to lead with a connection request, so to say, that really screams, I'm in this to see what's in this for me. But instead, if you shift your mindset and say, I'm looking for podcast guests, or I'm looking for people to interview because I'm trying to consider topics for my next book, or I see that we're both in the same city, or I see that you're really interested in this. And I genuinely love connecting with other believers online, or I love connecting with other people that, are running their business and their parents. And again, you want what you say to be something that you genuinely could see from what they have listed on LinkedIn. So if you both were, if you both are on a school board, or if you both think Habitat for Humanity is awesome, you can tie in all of those little things and keep a very short, little quick reach out to somebody that shows that you took time and effort. And it's going to, I believe, significantly increase the likelihood that they are going to accept your connection request. Now, are there people that are out there maybe teaching completely differently of what I just said that are getting results of people that are accepting their connection request? Absolutely. But what I like to say is don't incorporate in your strategy what kind of puts you in the like creepy stalker guy online bucket. And I'm just saying, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name the platform, the people that reach out to me that in the exact same reach out are like, buy my thing, or in the exact same reach out are like, you're gorgeous. Like, I want to send you money, right? They just do crazy, creepy, stalky things. And so I don't want to associate my actions with those kinds of behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And you're trying to get more quality connections over quantity, which I don't want anyone to hear what I said initially as a contradiction to that. Mm-hmm. So if you did just start, your goal may be to, yes, get to 500. But if you're at 0, your first initial goal might be, I'm trying to get to 50. And then I'm trying to get to 100. And you don't need to do like this, I'm trying to make this happen in 72 hours, or odds are you're probably going to get maybe even locked out of the platform because you tried to do too many messages to too many people in a quick period of time. But instead, look at your calendar and say, how much time can I dedicate for LinkedIn? And I think you need to pick a time. And if it's 5 minutes, if it's 10 minutes, or if it's 45 minutes, a certain number of days a week, then you need to, without distraction, block your time and say, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to make more authentic connections. And I'm going to actually make the time and the effort to make that happen. And I'm going to do that consistently. And the more you flex that muscle, the more natural it becomes that without even thinking, you wake up and you brush your teeth. And without even thinking, maybe you're going to have a cadence that 3 times a week for 10 minutes each, you're going to come in, go to the search bar and do what I just said and say, I'm going to reach out to as many people as I can with a personalized message in that 10 minutes. And you're done. And then the next time you have that on your calendar of things to do list, you're going to come in and knock it out. And what you will see is that you're going to begin increasing your connections, but you want to add to your kind of like bucket list of what to do on an ongoing monthly basis is not just go, I'm trying to initially reach out to people whom I don't know and I don't have connections with, but then say, I'm going to set aside time to go back and try to nurture some of those connections. So I would encourage everyone, come up with like, what are those bucket conferences you would love to have your book at? Who are those people that you would love to have a conversation with? Who are those event industry leaders that you would love for them to know that your book is out there and the book you wrote is complementary maybe to the books that they've written? And say to yourself, I've got this bucket list of these 10 dream companies or these 10 dream publishers or these 10 dream people. And then say to yourself, what am I doing on an ongoing monthly basis on LinkedIn to get the attention of those people? Just reaching out to them once isn't going to be enough. And so it can be really simple things by you saying, here's my dream list. Have I gone and commented on content that they have posted? Have I gone and left a genuine 4 words or more comment on something that they have posted? Have I gone and shared something that they've written onto my own timeline that I thought was good or wise or would benefit my community or my audience? And when you incorporate those kinds of things to go from, I just trying to get more connections, but instead switching your mindset and saying, I'm trying to get on the radar of my top 10 publishers or my top 10, you name that thing. Then when you begin incorporating those actions onto increasing the visibility, before you know it, people who didn't know you existed or don't know that you have a book are ultimately people that you're having DMs with, or maybe it leads to a conversation and it leads to more opportunities for you to get your book to be seen and heard by more of the right people.
And I love how you talk about it in your book, Heather, about just having that scheduled routine, that you can take time to go and engage with those people that you're trying to make the connections with. And I so appreciate that you say it's not just about the number of connections, just like on other platforms. It's not the number of followers. It's not anything about the numbers. It's just that genuine connection. And I know you talk a lot about building relationships in your book, which I so appreciate. And I'm all down for is just, I think the relationships definitely are what makes the world go round. And I do just want to call out again, like this whole conversation so far, we are going to get to content, but everybody just thinks, oh my gosh, this is one more platform to be on, right? If they're not on already. And this is just one more place I have to share content. And I just want to say that we haven't even gotten to that part. Like we are just truly talking about building relationships, engaging with people, just setting aside time, which is a huge benefit to the people you're trying to reach, your readers, as well as, the relationships you're going to form. And so I love that we're just digging into that before we even get into the content. So I asked you about Liz. Oh, so you mentioned groups. So let's talk about that because I didn't even know there were LinkedIn groups. So tell us about that, Heather, because I'm sure everybody in my audience knows about Facebook groups, but we don't know about LinkedIn groups.
So if you, like I said, if I go to LinkedIn and I type in the search bar at the top and I type in the word authors, again, right across the top is a little option that says groups. And so it's going to immediately pull up, and just for listening purposes, right now, LinkedIn is telling me that there are 3,700 results for groups that have basically the word authors with an S at the end inside of that. But as you know, or if you don't, all groups are not created equal anywhere, whether it be in life. And that is also true online. So what I would say when you are maybe looking for groups to go, why might I consider being in a group? It is something that can be beneficial to your business in a more niche market gathering of people that are interested in that particular topic. So that can be really good for collaboration opportunities, for maybe partnership opportunities, for maybe synergy. If you're trying to get someone that has a book on a different topic that is maybe complementary to what yours is about, all of those maybe reasons, in addition to, of course, readers that may be interested in your book. But when you go looking for a group on LinkedIn, the two things I would say to pay special attention to are the number of people that are in the group, as well as how active the actual group is. So if anyone is looking for permission, I will give it to you, but you don't need my permission, is you don't have to be on all the places all the time. But if LinkedIn is one of your top 1 or 2 platforms as a priority for your business focus over the next 12 months, then I challenge everybody listening to say, I'm going to do something every week to ultimately prove not only to myself, but to my audience that this is a place that I'm showing up. And by showing up, that includes the content that you're posting. And I know you said you wanted to talk about content.
So let's dig into that, because I love that, again, just that we teed it up about all the engagement and building the relationships, because I know a lot of times we just get so focused on the content. I'm just sharing content to this platform and sharing, but I don't ever set aside time to go back and engage with it. And this is like super proactive engaging. So I love it. So yeah, let's dig into the content side of it. So if we want to utilize LinkedIn, say we've been utilizing Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Pinterest, there's so many other things that we may have been doing. So how does the content differ, or is it the same? If somebody wanted to repurpose to LinkedIn, is it going to look a little bit different because it is more professional? And is video still king on LinkedIn as it is the other places? Let us talk about, just how we can dig into the content there.
All the things. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about culture. So LinkedIn over the last 3 years, I believe, has kind of softened up a bit in regarding it being a very professional atmosphere. So not to say that it's equal with Facebook, but what I am saying is I would say it's lightened up a little bit in regards to what may be deemed as acceptable content to post on LinkedIn versus what is on Facebook. That being said, when you're comparing LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook, LinkedIn does have more of a professional atmosphere, not necessarily meaning that those people are better, but I'm just saying a lot of people that are active on LinkedIn are maybe there and they're maybe punching a clock. They're working a 9 to 5. They're maybe much more in a corporate setting. They are wanting to connect more with people that are decision makers. They are deeper, I would say, into their industry and their responsibility for their work. So what does that mean? Well, that means from your posting style, I really just like to say across the board, you want to respect the platform that you're posting on. So you can still be personable. You can still have a personality. You can you can still tell stories, and you can do all of those things on LinkedIn. I would just say in general on LinkedIn, it's going to have a more professional vibe overall in general.
Mm-hmm.
And as it relates to the difference between LinkedIn and, let's say, Facebook, is you just want to, again, when you take that professional atmosphere that is around the LinkedIn culture, then maybe you would use language that does sound more professional than, depending on kind of your personality style, that you may do on Instagram or on Facebook. And so for anyone who likes numbers, I just want to share a couple quick statistics for you. So these are specifically as it relates to LinkedIn, but video posts on LinkedIn are 5 times more likely to get comments than those without. Here's another stat for you. Videos on LinkedIn are getting shared 20 times more than any other content on the platform. Video posts earn 3 times the engagement than text-only posts. So when you take all that into consideration and you think about your book and you think about your visibility and you think about your voice on LinkedIn, I encourage everyone listening to say, am I using video in my content to just genuinely do all the things that you would think about as it relates to content? And that might be, who's my book for? Or does your book solve a particular problem? Are you talking about those problems? Are you spotlighting the top questions that people may ask you about your book, or the top questions that are answered inside of your book, and turn each of those questions into a post? Now, I'd love for you to do video because I think video is awesome, but it doesn't mean everything you do has to be video. But when anyone is asking themselves, what type of content should I be posting about on LinkedIn? I want you to instead ask yourself the question and say, the people that this book is ideal for, what are their problems? What are they needing help with? How could this book bless them or serve them? And then I want you to turn every one of those ideas that come to your mind, turn each one of those into a social media post idea.
So it could be quotes from your book, but let's talk about the video. So what would that look like, Heather? Is it you coming on camera, which I know, like myself too, like we all cringe and go, oh, I don't want to be on camera, but I know how beneficial that is to really make that connection with somebody, especially with an author. Is that what you suggest? Like, is the author coming on video and just share? Is like a certain link that's great to just share a little bit from their book and talk to the reader about how they can solve their problem, or what kind of video content is ruling over there?
Yeah. So, okay. Let me use myself, for example. So my book is called The Golden Rules of Social Media Marketing. So when I sit down and I think about who I wrote the book for, the book is for CEOs, it's for business owners, it's for people that want to be able to do social media better for their business. And so, I get asked all kinds of questions, but, let's just say just one tip from my book is about how to use Instagram better, or how to optimize your bio, right? That's just one of all the questions that I get asked that is addressed in my book. And so let's just pretend I've got my phone. You don't have to have fancy tools. You turn your camera either vertical or horizontal, however you want your video. You make sure that your audio is clear and that you're in good lighting. And it could be as simple as you hit the record button and you say, a question I get asked all the time is, how can a business use Instagram in order to grow or in order to find new clients? So in this video, I'm going to really share with you my top 2 suggestions. Share those top 2 suggestions. And then at the end of the video, say something like, this, came up, as I was getting ready to write this book on this particular topic. If you would like more information about it, we've got a link below on how you can go and check out the book on Amazon.
Okay.
But every video doesn't have to be, here, go buy my book. But I'm just saying you're going to be doing a disservice to your efforts if you don't include it sometimes. So it's, again, the video content needs to start with what the video is about before you're trying to tell people who you are, the name of your book, where you live. Like, people are busy. So let them know at the first 10 seconds, what's this video about? And then they can be able to make the decision. Do they want to keep listening or not?
Yeah. Because so many times I scroll through my feed and, videos pop up and you're like, oh, I bet they have something really great to say. But there's, it might be like you said, like a list of 3 things. Like I know like a lot of my audience would probably be like 3 verses, to conquer mom anger, or, 3 questions to ask your kids about, whatever, for their mental health. And I think I would probably stop if I saw that at the top of the video, right? If I knew that's what the video was about, or I hear that in the first few seconds. So does it matter if it's portrait or landscape video on LinkedIn? In the feed?
I would say if it's going to be in the feed, I normally would record a horizontal video for LinkedIn. That's more so like a preference on my side. I'm not telling you that is like the way to do it.
Yeah, I think that probably does show up better though when you're going through the feed. And what about the length of time on the video?
LinkedIn has changed things so often. I'm literally giggling here a little bit on the inside. As of 4 months ago, 10 minutes, you could record a video that was up to 10 minutes without any problem. In the minute it went over that, it would be like your video is too long. So again, you don't want to have a goal to say, I want to use the most amount of time possible. Instead, I want everyone to go, I want to be able to as accurately convey what I'm trying to convey as quickly as possible. So if it takes you 30 seconds to say what's necessary, then you're done. If it takes you 2.5 minutes, you're done. But I would also challenge you, if your video is longer, to just audit yourself and say, am I rambling? Am I not clear? And if it genuinely is a longer video because it's more content, then that's great. Some audiences resonate with longer videos. I do genuinely like to encourage people to try to get 3 minutes or less in your video content, especially if they are newer or even maybe fearful of doing video. That way you don't have this mindset of like, oh my goodness, I'm trying to memorize all the things. I mean, just be yourself, be human, look into the camera and talk about what you need to talk about. And for every single author that goes, no, Heather, everything you just said doesn't apply to my business because I'm not trying to market to other people. I'm just trying to sell my book to a mom, or I'm trying to sell my book to this particular person. And maybe it's not business related at all. Open your book and look at every chapter. And I want you to start there and pretend that every chapter is a video. And so that could be a million things. It could be you just describing why you wrote that chapter. And at the end, you tell people if they're interested to go check out your book. Or maybe it's you spotlighting one top thought from that chapter. It's like, take the book that you have in that format that's already there, that's already written, that's already broken down, and you broke it down into those particular chapters or sections for a reason, and literally turn that into video content. And again, for the purposes of this conversation, we're talking about LinkedIn, we're talking about content. If you don't want to do it in video, then you still take the concept of what I just said and you post with a photo, and you maybe write some words explaining out what maybe I would say you could say in a video. You can write it out in a longer form or a shorter form post.
What about, have you had any luck getting any conversions over to your email list? Like when you share content like that?
Absolutely. So for example, if I had a video and if the video was about an Instagram tip, the words I would write with any video that I upload to LinkedIn would say, here are my top 2 recommendations on how to leverage Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say, hey, if you found this to be helpful or you're interested, feel free to check out my free content calendar. Here's the link below. So I would, in writing, for the person who might not watch the video,
Mm-hmm.
I would include that. And then I would verbally be talking about it in the actual video. And then another tip I like to have is, if I can do something that makes it easier for someone else to take action, I like to try to incorporate that into my marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So if it were me and I was making the video, and let's say at the end, I say, hey, if you'd like to get my free content calendar, you can visit, sweettteasocialmarketing.com/content calendar. Or if right now you're busy or you're doing all the things, if you want me to message it to you, just comment below the word link and I'll send it to you. So then if they're listening to the video and they're like, I want it, but I didn't see it, or maybe they don't go back up and see that it's written in the copy, but they did hear what I just said and they type in the comment box link. Well, then because I've got my notifications turned on LinkedIn, I know that anybody, and I would be very consistent just to make that easy on myself, that if I ever saw someone responded link, I'm just going to message them what they asked for.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's, so many opportunities like that we forget about when we're so, we trying to figure out how to title our videos and what all to put on the video and get on video. And then we forget how to engage those that are listening, with some kind of call to action. And does it matter on LinkedIn? And I know this kind of goes back and forth on Facebook, does it matter if you have your link in your post versus like in a comment?
I don't think it matters. I mean, there's been so many case studies of testing it with it there, testing it with it out there. That isn't as important. But what I will say, just like on the other social platforms, their job and their goal and what makes LinkedIn happy is to keep people on LinkedIn as long as possible. So if you're posting 20 times a month, and 20 of your posts all include a link which guide people out of LinkedIn, then it is going to decrease the reach of your posts because LinkedIn likes to keep people on LinkedIn. So I would encourage people have other types of content that doesn't always have a link taking people away.
Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. Because I know a lot of the platforms are kind of that same way, right? And we just have to think of how can we do that? How can we still share that same content, but share it on LinkedIn? And like you were saying, the different ways to do content, it'd probably be great to even just a link to maybe a past post where you shared something. And that way they're just getting to take more of your content, but staying on the platform. So you mentioned about hashtags what is the scoop with hashtags on LinkedIn? Like, should you only use a few, or I know you said you could search them out. And so that's really great, but how should we use them? Is there any pros and cons to using them on our post?
There's nothing magical about this number. So I'm just going to preface that, but less is more on LinkedIn when it comes to hashtags. Okay. So I would say when you're using hashtags on LinkedIn, which I love using, include them at the bottom of your post and try to use 5 or less and make it be genuine hashtags that your audience is going to be searching for. Think like your audience, not like another marketer. Now, of course, you may have different times where you are intentionally wanting to attract other authors, but don't just use all the tags that other authors use. So if you search it, all you're finding are other authors. Literally go, what hashtags are the people that I'm wanting to resonate with using? Or they may be using hashtag Christian nonfiction, like something that resonates with what you're about, but think like a user would when they go to Google or when they're using a hashtag.
Okay. So one last question, Heather, I have to ask you because you're a podcast host and you do have interviews on your show. What is your preferred method, if any, to get pitches for guests on your show?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So, my preferred method is email by someone who has listened to my podcast and has why they're reaching out to me included in their pitch, and they've kept it short. So it's like, it's not good enough. And it drives me insane when it's like a really long thing that's all about them. And they've gone in and typed in one sentence at the beginning that really just seems like it says, hey, I've had a chance to listen to your podcast, but there's nothing else in the email that really indicates why they would be a good fit to be on my show, or ultimately what they have to offer and why is that valuable to my specific audience. My honest answer is literally imagine that someone is going to say yes only if you've done a good job of being relatable and that you've listened and just in very succinct points of how my audience is going to be able to benefit from that person coming on.
Oh gosh, I love that because we talk so much about it. It's not, there are podcasts where you can jump on and talk about your book specifically, but most of them are not. It's usually the message from your book. And I always tell my listeners, make sure that your message matches the podcast host mission. If you're pitching them, like they've got to match up, right? You've got to show that you can bring value to those listeners. So I'm so glad to get your perspective as a podcast host that interviews people on your podcast. Well, Heather, this has been amazing. And I will be sure and put all the links to Heather's good stuff, the show notes for you. But I did want to see, I didn't know if you had a resource you might want to share with our listeners, and plus tell everybody about your free Facebook group.
Absolutely. So if you want to be in my Facebook group, it is for Christian CEOs and ultimately believers that want to be able to use social media in a better and smarter way. My Facebook group can be found by simply going to facebook.com/groups/sweet tea social. And then I would just love your listeners to come and be social with me. So if you go to my website, sweetteasocialmarketing.com, you will find links for our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter, and LinkedIn, and just come and say, I listened to the podcast and I was encouraged by this. I love that feedback.
Oh, good. Yeah, definitely. I'll put all the links in the show notes so everybody can connect with you. Well, thank you, Heather. This has been wonderful. We've learned so much about LinkedIn, and I can't wait to hear what my listeners have to say about that. And hopefully they'll start connecting with you there and us both, and give us some feedback on the episode. So thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Y'all, who's ready to jump on LinkedIn? I think it's such a super cool platform, especially to make connections and collaborations, not to mention getting the word out that you're an author. I'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. If you're on LinkedIn, let's connect there at Kim Stewart Marketing, and you'll find all the links we talked about in the show notes here in your player or on our blog at bookmarketingmania.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks to help you market your book one podcast at a time.